Right. So basically our main focus this year has been the implementation of the OERu first year of study. And as you are aware, there are 2 exit awards that are proposed, or that will be implemented. The first is the Certificate of Higher Education in Business, OERu, that will be conferred by the University of the Highlands and Islands. The credential has been validated by UHI, subject to the implementation of a couple of additional requirements, and Andy's working on that. So the course basically comprises 60 core credits, the 3 courses that are listed there. In UK terminology, those are modules of 20 credits each, or 200 notional learning hours, that will be assembled by UHI and assessed by UHI. And a number of optional courses, 60 credits are required. And you can see there from the list of courses, we will have 94 credits available, so the learners will have some choice. The green arrows there represent courses that have been published and are ready for launch as we speak. The progress bars at the bottom are courses that are more than 75% complete and will be completed by the partners meeting and ready to go. The other qualification that we have for the MVP is the Certificate of General Studies that will be conferred by Thomson Rivers University. TRU has a residency requirement of 2 courses, or 6 North American credits. As you will see there, those courses are basically nearing completed and or nearing completion. And then we will also have a number of arts courses, 26 credits that will be available, North American credits, as you can see listed there. And of course, a number of the business courses could also be recognized towards the Certificate of General Studies. So that's pretty much where we're at in the line of courseware. I just want to re-emphasize that the OERu credit transfer system is designed to operate within existing institutional policy, and all our partners retain decision-making autonomy over all aspects of credit transfer. We've also completed in collaboration with the active partners engaged with assessment services and or credit transfer recognition towards these awards, a credit transfer contract, which has been approved by the respective registrars at the active institutions. A couple of weeks ago, I circulated a copy of the contract for any partners that would want to make inputs or get to see what the contract looks like. The credit transfer contract that we've assembled was based on the guidelines that we approved at the 2015 partners meeting in South Africa. We have also established a partnership with EduBits, which is a new micro-credentialing initiative that is led here at Otago Polytechnic. There was also an announcement by the New Zealand Minister of Tertiary Education, Skills and Employment announcing 3 national prototypes looking at the whole landscape of micro-credentialing here within New Zealand. And the EduBits OERu partnership pilot is one of the designated projects that the ministry is having a closer look at. And basically, how this would work is we've assembled all our OERu courses as micro courses. Each micro course equates to roughly 40 or 50 notional learning hours. So basically how this would work, a learner would be able to request assessment services for each one of the micro courses. If they are successful, they will receive a digital certification. If the learners complete the digital certifications for each of the micro courses, Otago Polytechnic will issue transcript credit, which would then be recognized towards the Certificate of Higher Education in Business. We have announced a soft launch schedule commensurate with the decision at the previous Council of CEOs meeting to proceed with a realistic and conservative targets as we build brand awareness and collect data for the project. We've announced 3 phases, well, 2 phases. The first phase will be the launch of the Learning in a Digital Age course. Phase 2, we've chosen courses that are likely to have a high appeal. The 3 courses listed there: Principles of Management, Introduction to Entrepreneurship, and Introduction to Project Management for phase 2. And then the course schedule for phases 3 and beyond will be discussed and decided at the International Partners Meeting. I appreciate that the concept of open pedagogy is still not well defined and is very much a contested concept. But I think it is worthwhile thinking about the things that we can do with open that are harder to do with closed. And much of this thinking has been driving the work we've been doing here at the OERu. One example, of course, is this concept of free-range learning, or what Jim Taylor has referred to as the pedagogy of discovery. And admittedly, I accept that that's semi-free-range learning. You'll notice a small fence there in the background, and I guess any sort of free-range learning approaches have to work within existing constraints. But a good example of this implementation is this idea where learners search for and find open access resources and OERs in pursuit of their own learning interests in achieving the learning outcomes for courses. And the regional relations in Australia and Pacific course is a good example of the implementation of this pedagogy. The course covers 40 plus different countries, and it would not be easy to assemble a closed or proprietary textbook that would cover 40 countries. But with OER and open access resources, we are able to implement a pedagogy of discovery in a sustainable way. And we've also used the pedagogy of discovery quite extensively with the Learning in a Digital Age course. The other area which is also pretty interesting to think about is when we are using OER and open source technologies, to think about how one would actually design and implement a learning platform. And at the OERu, I think the best way of describing our learning platform is that we use the internet as the delivery platform rather than a single application like a learning management system. And so this is more or less what our technologies look like. Our authoring platform, our partners collaborate and author the course materials on the wiki. In that way, we have version control and are able to collaborate across different countries. The authors assemble a simple outline in the wiki, which represents the structure of our courses. And our OERu partners can then request a snapshot, which will then automatically produce a published website on WordPress using a custom OERu theme. From the learner's perspective, our learners access the course materials on an open website. From our perspective, we do not require password access to the course materials. If one applies a password to course materials, they are per definition closed. We then use a number of interaction technologies, best of breed open source technologies that are distributed across the web for various activities and features. And we then, through the use of syndication technologies, generate a live course feed that the learners can consult, which brings all these technologies together. This technology wheel shows the suite of open technologies that we are using. We use the discourse engine for discussion forums, Mastodon, which is a social media network or open source alternative to Twitter. Learners can choose from a number of blogging platforms, which they use as their own e-portfolios. We have an internal comment engine called Wiki Educated Notes. We've also integrated Hypothesis for annotating any page on the web. And we have implemented a social bookmarking technology called Semantic Scuttle, which is an open source alternative to Dijo, which is used as a resource bank for learners to share, interesting resources that they find on the web. So let me just let this load. This is a live example of what an OERu course looks like. I just want to point out one or two things there. We assemble our courses from, a number of learning pathways, and that's pretty much what a learning pathway would look like. It consists of a number of sub-pages that learners can then navigate through while completing the course materials. I just also like to point out one or two examples of learning challenges. We embed a number of learning challenges in the course materials. So let's have a look here at a resource bank activity. So I'm going to open that up in a new tab. I'm just going to remove this from full screen. So let's just scroll here. So here's a resource bank activity. It's related to learners finding resources to define digital literacies and digital skills. They are instructed to go and find resources, and then useful links and resources that they find, they will enter here on OERu bookmarks, very similar to Dijo. It's a summary of the links that the learners have found. They can vote for links that they find useful, and this is a way for the learning cohorts to share resources. Let me also illustrate, go back here and find an annotation activity. Many of you may be familiar with Hypothesis, which is an open source technology for learners to be able to annotate any web page they find on the web. So let's find the article here. So this is an article that was published by Mahi Bailey on digital skills. So the idea is, let me just activate. This is taking a while to load, but basically what happens is you can go and highlight and annotate any component of the article. Let me just see here, that's hidden behind. Here we go. So basically how this works is you can go and highlight any section, you can add an annotation. By adding the course tag, we are able to, the course tag or the OERu course code, we are able to harvest these interactions for the course feed. So you basically get the idea. Learners can also reply to any annotations that have been posted. So just to give you a bit of a flavor of some of the technologies we're using, and let me just illustrate what the course feed looks like. This course is, even though it's live on the web at the moment, this course hasn't run yet, so you'll just see a number of the posts we've been testing for the different technologies. Here, for example, you'll see this is a post that comes from our discussion forum, which uses discourse. Here is a post which comes from Wiki Educator Notes. Here's an example of a bookmark that's been posted. Here is an example of a blog post that was authored on Medium. And basically, from the course feed, learners would be able to go to the actual source on the web where this comes from. So I've just clicked through here, and here's an example of the blog post I posted on Medium, which is then integrated into the course feed. So that's pretty much what our platform looks like. Let's have a look here. I'm not going to go into all the detailed explanations of the underlying technology. Dave today posted a blog explaining all the technologies that underpin this. One of the things we do here at the OERu is we actually publish the technical recipes of all the technologies we're using, so that any partner that wanted to replicate any of these technologies would be able to do so, because they're all based entirely on open source. So let me leave it there for the moment and open up the floor for any questions or comments.
Just a brief comment, Wayne. I think it's a very comprehensive set of technologies that have been integrated, and I think the minimal viable product that we aim for and the minimum viable platform are looking pretty robust, with lots of courseware and lots of options for pedagogies and applications. So I think it's an impressive demonstration that you've put together. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jim. Yes, this has come a long way. As one thing that characterizes the OERu, it's the rigor of our planning.
Yeah, Wayne, I simply wanted to say the same. I've not been as good at keeping track of what you've been doing and where you've been going, and I have to say I am truly impressed in the range of technologies that you brought together here. And I'm currently tasked with looking at the Open University's own internal platforms and planning for the future, and I will be taking a really careful look at your blog, because yeah, it's a really impressive range of technologies that you brought together, and it will be really interesting to look at the users as they come in terms of their feedback on that. Will you be running an evaluation program in terms of how users are interacting with the technologies and making sense of it? Is that part of the planning?
Yep. So one of the things at our first, the founding meeting of OERu partners, we implemented the SIP evaluation model, context, input, process, and product evaluation. So we've actually worked through the context and input evaluation thus far, in helping us design and plan the futures of the model. We are now moving into the process evaluation phase. And in fact, at the partners meeting, we will be reviewing the process evaluation plan and helping to tweak and refine that. So yes, we will be looking at aspects of this. We do have some limited analytics. I don't want to use analytics in the sense of how the concept is being used in a broader sense, but obviously we've got the web stats, and we have some built-in components that we will be able to see how learners are engaging with the model. The interesting challenge, of course, within the OERu context is because we don't require password registration in order to access the learning materials. There's a bit of a trade-off there, but certainly at an aggregated level, we will have some information. I mean, I think it's also worthwhile noting this is very much a kind of an open source design model that is incremental. So, we're working with a minimum viable product. It's just a basic set of core features that we believe would be useful for learning management, or, for the delivery of the OERu, which gives a lot of flexibility to tweak. And so what would also be possible for any of our partner institutions, rather than, take a decision to adopt the technology suite, as enterprise technology, it is possible to, run small pilots. And very much, this learn by doing model as we move forward. I mean, thinking of course delivery outside of a learning management system poses a number of, interesting challenges, and it's very much a learn by doing kind of approach. But I really appreciate your feedback, Andrew. It's quite exciting, actually. One of the other things that we've done is the Learning in the Digital Age course is actually designed to help learners find their way and build skills and capacities in using these technologies. So we're hoping that the Learning in a Digital Age course would kind of become an anchor course for learners to start developing the kinds of digital and learning literacies they need in order to succeed in this kind of learning environment.
Yeah, I just want to echo again everyone else's comments. I think it's interesting that I think a lot of these tools have reached a level of kind of maturity now that you can give them to students without requiring those students to be kind of like technically sort of aficionados and stuff. But also I think the other area that I liked was your recent post on the micro-credentialing. So I think that's, as you know, it's an area we're exploring. I expect lots of other people are as well. So I think that's a really, when you put up your reasons to participate with the OERu, I think it's a way of kind of a kind of sandbox or sort of soft testing a lot of these things that many universities have been sort of grappling with, whether it's technology or pedagogy or sort of credentialing recognition approaches. So I think it's a really good sort of way to come in and try all that stuff.
Yeah, no, thanks for that, Martin. I mean, one of the things we are learning is this sort of low cost, low risk innovation model, because the exposure for an individual institution to start gaining experience with these kinds of approaches is very low. The risk that is, but the potential gains are huge. And I mean, I think that's the power of the network model. We're able to do things here together as a network that are hard to do as on your own. Yeah.
Wayne, can I just make a comment on what you just showed us there? Like everyone else, I'm appreciative of the integration of a range of technologies and the opportunities that brings up. Something that occurred to me when watching that as a somewhat of an old fogey. I struggle with navigation in many online programs, and where we have different learners coming in and different courses being developed by different people. Here at UHI, we have over 3,000 modules and units. One of the things we constantly struggle with is the balance between having different architectures to suit different types of learning, whether it's art or science or what have you, and the desire for some students to have continuity, and similarity of view and design and navigation. I think that for me is going to be one of the tipping points, one of the key elements here as to OERu in its entirety, how successful it is how people feel about engaging with a series of different products with different styles. I'm not saying one way is good or bad, that diversity can be extremely good, and we certainly have that in UHI, but we constantly have these calls for this some sort of similarity of design, some sort of commonality. Yeah. But I think that's going to be something to watch over the coming years.
Yeah. No, good comments, Gary, and I'm in total agreement. I mean, it's a tough balance to keep, right? Having a consistent look and feel and a consistent structure for across the OERu for all learners, but at the same time not prescribing any pedagogical approach. So it's a fine balance. I mean, the way we've tackled it at the OERu up to now, it might change in the future, but we agreed sort of a high-level structure, and it was an interesting debate. I mean, things like we call the units of learning pathways, just by one example. So that the reason for that was so that it wouldn't compete with the kinds of or the different terminology that different institutions have for the smallest units of learning. So it was thinking of the whole reuse and kind of scenario there. We also took a decision early on that every course would have a course guide, which lays out the course aims, sort of the objectives, how the assessments would work, and I mean, there's been consistent adherence with all the partners in terms of how they've assembled the courses using that structure. Nobody has complained that they had not been able to implement the particular pedagogical approach. So far so good, but we'll wait and see. In terms of what the general acceptance will be across all the learners. But that said, we did run quite a number of pilot courses before we sort of arrived at the structure. And each iteration had tweaks to it. just, to get it well. And, folk that teach in these environments will know you learn through experience. I mean, one of the things you typically don't do in these environments is have the standard, please introduce yourself in the course discussion forum kind of model, because, if you've got thousands of learners, people will be switched off by all the email they'll be receiving. So, having these distributed technologies where learners can decide how they sip and dip and, what they want to concentrate on. Other things that we can do is in LEADER, for example, we help learners in setting up their own RSS feed readers. So then they can decide which learners they want to follow in terms of posts. So they've got a lot more control in terms of how they set up these environments. So, yeah.
When Prof. Alpha just joined me, so you just want to participate. So I welcome Prof. Robert to the meeting.
Good day, Robert. Welcome. Welcome. Perhaps you just want to say hello.
Yes, thanks very much. I came in just after you had begun, and good morning, colleagues. I've taken over from Professor Martin Oosthuizen as the DVC Teaching and Learning at Northwest University in South Africa. Wayne, I had two questions. It was in relation to the earlier part of your talk around concepts of open pedagogy and free range learning. And I just wondered, how do these relate to, for example, self-directed learning and the pedagogy of discovery that you mentioned? So there's a big area of scholarship, mostly in the US, I think, around SDL, PBL, problem-based learning, and so on. And be useful to understand with you the concepts of free range and open in relation to pedagogy and learning.
A very good question. Very good question, Robert. Rassi, if you could just mute your mic again, because we're just getting a bit of feedback loop there, feedback echo. There's certainly overlap between different kind of pedagogical approaches. Possibly what I'd like to do here is let me hand over to Jim, who has been instrumental in thinking about the pedagogy of discovery and its implementation at the OERu. And maybe, Jim, if you'd like to comment?
Yeah, sure. I think in setting up the OERu, we had a focus on developing independent, self-directed learners as a sort of philosophical position, because it's lightly supported and it's peer supported. It's not directed to the same extent that a lot of pedagogies are teacher directed. But at the same time, we've embedded a lot of structure. And so with the LEADER course, for example, I think students are given opportunities to develop skills and familiarity with the technologies that we use that will enable them to become more self-directed. And also in terms of speaking specifically about the pedagogy of discovery, in the USQ course on regional relations in Asia and the Pacific, we wanted the students to have the opportunity to select countries that were of interest to them, and to an extent certain topics and nuances aimed at the particular objectives of the course. And the fact that we've now got a wealth of open education resources available, and also we've got frameworks for evaluating and judging the credibility of the source and the like. We feel that we are able to open up the curriculum to a large extent. So there's some comments which I hope are helpful. I think there will be time at the meeting and later in the review of the strategic plan that we have time to discuss this further. So I hope they're helpful. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Jim. And Martin, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I know you've been doing some thinking and writing around these the concepts of open pedagogy.
You did put me on the spot, Wayne.
But you should
Yeah,
be able to handle it.
Yeah, as you said, there's been quite a bit of debate. You know, there's the kind of more strict definition of David Wiley, which it has to use. It's pedagogy that uses OER, and then sort of people like Jim Groom who prefer kind of more of a mindset approach. But I think it's bits that we've been exploring are sort of bringing learning into the university, and I like the idea of things like a DS 106 where they have kind of assignment banks where people can kind of create their own assignments and then choose from a bank of those. So I think my tendency is to sort of move away from the kind of very strict that has to involve OER and to be more of a kind of a taking advantage of the kind of the openness of the web as an approach. But also using things like some of the work that Robin DeRose has been doing with open textbooks, so kind of using an open textbook and then getting students themselves to kind of interrogate that. And I think that's particularly interesting in when we have discussions about how to decolonialize the curriculum and those kind of things, changing that relationship between textbooks and what students do. I think is a very interesting approach. Did I bluff it enough there, Wayne?
Oh, yeah. Sterling job. Better than I could. So yeah, I mean, a lot of our thinking has been driven by the advantages of the open web. So you know, we've got this open web, we've got open resources. I mean, how can we use it in ways that support learning that are harder to achieve with sort of closed models? I mean, one of the examples that Martin referred to is getting learners engaged in sort of contributing to the resources themselves. And in Leader, we'll be doing a bit of work where, based on this adage of, if you want to learn something, teach it, where we're going to be getting the learners to start generating multiple choice questions that cover the course concepts. And we can then start having learners, comment and get feedback on those questions. And when, in theory, once these items reach a level of statistical reliability and validity, those items could then potentially be moved into assessment banks for summative assessment. So these kinds of things that can be incorporated as well. So lots to do and lots to learn as we move forward, and it's going to be an interesting journey for sure.